Hey, this is Jackson, aka Gamble,
And this is Tyler, also known as Flux.
and we will be bringing you a match between Marvin, the green Protoss player, versus Cheeseblock, the pink Terran.
Cheeseblock, what an interesting name. Again, guys, we are on Game 7 of a show match between the University of Texas at Austin and the University of Texas at Arlington. So we have Cheeseblock spawning for Arlington, and again, Marvin spawning for UT Austin. This is Game 7, like we mentioned, but UT Austin already won the match. It was a best of 7. They are ahead 4-2, but the players, just in order to give new players a shot, really have the experience at the whole show match series, decided to go on with game number 7 despite the results. So we're in for a little bit of a fun match here just to see how it goes.
Yeah, and we do see the Protoss player moving out with one probe, scouting after pylon. Very common in this matchup because the probe has a lot of opportunity to harass. So you will see that we'll start harassing these SCVs, building buildings like the supply depot here.
Yeah, Marvin's very good about his harass. As you see, he's already damaged that SCV a little bit, and already the Terran's forced to pull 3 SCVs off of gathering to deal with this one probe. Another reason why he sent out this early scout is because this map is so short rush distances. It's known a lot for cheese, so you can easily have something like a proxy barracks for Reapers or all kinds of stuff like that. So he's just being on the safe side. He spots that something standard's happening. You have the standard depot and barracks, so nothing too crazy is going to be happening for either player at this point.
Yeah. The thing about rushing on this map is that although it has very short distances, so you have to scout early and make sure no proxy plays are happening, we do see that it makes up for that because you'll see that the natural is very easy to defend. I mean, I know there's this cliff backside where Terran can siege up tanks, but in terms of axis, there's just only this one direction. So, you know, it's very easy to put up static defenses. As a Zer, you can put a lot of spines in that choke and be assured that they're not going to go around somehow, as in like the map Blistering Sands. And also, the main base only has one front, so that there's not a lot Reapers can do. There's not a lot of cliffing that they can do, so they really lose a lot of their mobility on a map like this.
That's a very good point. So far, we see the Cybercore going down for the Protoss player. Good standard play. Good stuff for him. Terran player, same thing. He gets that orbital on time. Is finally shooting down that scout that Marvin still has in his base. So good stuff for both players so far. It'll be very interesting to see where they go. The Terran player very smartly taking control of that Zelnaga watchtower up top, just so he can see if anything crazy is happening, which we know isn't. But it's good to be safe here.
It looks like a Terran player is throwing down a factory, so he will be going for some sort of tech play, not necessarily too many Marines and Marauders that we see so often in this matchup.
If we remember, Cheeseblock was also the player earlier who went against Flex, the Protoss player. So this is the exact same build. He's looks like he's very confident in this build. He throws down his factory, and immediately afterwards he starts in his bunker. And it didn't work so well for him last game. Let's see if he can pull it off this game. It's a very different map, so I expect to see a sooner expansion. We'll see what happens though.
Yep, because there is a ramp to your main base, it will be easier to hold off. And you know, the Protoss player won't be able to walk in with a couple stalkers and pick away at these supply depots on top of the ramp. The factory has just finished, and it looks like he'll be throwing down a starport immediately. Meanwhile, the Protoss player is going for a fast expand, so this is the one gate FE build that's become recently popular in PvT.
Very interesting, and you know the Terran here really has no idea that that's happening. He sees the Stalker pressure, so he can easily assume that Marvin is going to build similar to that all the other Protosses in this match have gone so far, which is a 2-gate fast Stalker into whatever tech of their choice. So right now, he may be put at a little bit of a defensive position, even though he could easily pump out a lot of units and take care of that fast expansion, because it does put Marvin in a very interesting position.
Right. An interesting thing to note, you know, between these two builds is that so this one gate FE is actually directly meant to counter the 1-1-1 build from the Terran player, and we can see that the Terran player is actually going for a Raven right now. But a lot of times, Terran player will actually get a Banshee with Cloak. So the important timing in this this build, you know, matchup is to get a Robo so that your Observer comes out right when the Banshee with Cloak finishes. Otherwise, you're going to be pretty toast if you don't have an Observer ready.
I really like the turn player's choice of getting that Raven. And PvT or TVP, they can be so effective because you can throw down that point defense drone, and really it hurts stalkers so much. It takes so much time to micro that down. Then by that point, his tanks and his marauders can have done a serious amount of damage. And especially in this patch, you could not feed back the PDDs just because of that little bug. So it makes them that much more effective against Protoss.
And we see that the Protoss player has just finished transferring his pros to his natural expansion, which is now up. So we will be seeing an economic boost coming from the Protoss because he will have more mineral patches to mine off. So not as many pros bouncing in between. If we look at the food count right now, it is 45 for the Protoss versus 39 for the Terran player. So already we see that the economic boost kicking into play. And the Terran player is throwing up an expansion of his own, but it's going to be very late compared to the Protoss.
Yeah, it does look like the Terran player is going to try to catch up economically, though already, like you said, the Protoss player has taken a great lead at this point. The Terran player tried to play it defensively, which was the right choice based on the information he had. Little did he know, though, Marvin snuck up behind him and got an expo, and now is miles ahead in economy. We see, no, not miles, 33 versus 26. That's not too bad, but again, that's going to become even greater
Over
as
time,
this expansion
it's only
kicks
become
in.
larger. Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said this was the counter to the 1v1 build, and that's mostly because when Terran does this much teching, he really is forced to play very defensively. He had to throw that on his bunker so he didn't die early. He had to, get all these defensive structures and build this wall in, so he couldn't get a lot of units. And so, basically he just let Marvin get away with that fast expand, really interrupted. No mining interruptions or nothing. He just sort of powered probes the entire time.
Exactly. A lot of times when you see the Terran go this 1-1-1 style, it's very harass heavy. You see the Hellions, you see the Banshees. And if we look, there has not been one Hellion produced. Instead, the Terran players opted for tanks. Siege mode just finished. And now finally he's getting out his Banshees. Yeah. So this is going to be some very delayed harassment. It may be effective, it may not, but
and looking
it's
at
a
the
very
players
interesting
he
change.
Just now learned with that scan that there was an expansion.
Upgrade
so,
complete.
he must be panicking in his mind, seeing this kind of saturation at the natural, not knowing about it for such a long time.
Exactly. He must really, he knows he has to pick it up because if he doesn't, the Protoss player is just going to be much further ahead. And already we see Marvin's 15 Harvesters up. That is pretty incredible at this point of the game because we're still very early in the game, and 15 is a pretty big number. Of course, the Mules, they're going to help the Terran player recoup some of that loss, but it's not going to be enough to make up for that many Harvesters.
And we do see that the Terran player has one Banshee on the field, a second one just now popping out. So, two Banshees, he could catch up very easily with this. It's not uncommon to see a Banshee walk into a mineral line, come out with 10 to 15 kills even, if the other player isn't paying attention. So we'll see what these two Banshees can do.
Yeah, if he has some really nice play here with the Banshee, that could easily set him at least even with the Protoss player. Although I see that that's not a good watch shot. I would really like to see a little bit of action with that. Poke into the back of the mineral line, pull out, because right now it's not really doing anything for him.
Right. Well, he just threw down the cloak research, so maybe he's going to wait for that. But I would agree that it is very poorly timed. He should have started that cloak research earlier, so by the time that he had these two Banshees, he could have been able to do the harass.
Absolutely, and that's what you get when you try to tech too many paths at once. He went siege tanks, which I guess delayed the tech for the cloak research, so you get what you pay for, and he's delayed. We'll see if it pays off, though, as it looks like he's about to head into that mineral line. He's moving pretty close.
He might even be doing a, two-pronged
dual-pronged attack.
Right.
I really like this choice by the...
And one at
I was
the main.
I really like this choice by the Terran player because, as you see, the Protoss has all of his army in one ball, and though he took care of that one Banshee at the natural fairly easily, the one inside the main is very loose at this point.
Yeah, so it will take time for him to transfer his army over, although he is warping in units, which is very cool by the Protoss. Gives them a very dynamic defense, able to defend anywhere, not actually have to move their army. But the first Banshee did come away with 4 kills, and the second Banshee has 2 kills, so not quite yet paying for themselves, but still having potential as Cloak is not up yet.
Yeah, it's still alive. It could do a fair bit of damage here as the game continues. Although, if we see 5 gateways, it looks like Marvin's just about to throw down a couple more. With those kind of gateways, you're really able to warp in defenses to a lot of this harassment very, very easily. So, it really negates a lot of that harassment. It wouldn't be as effective as it was earlier in the game.
Yeah, and he is getting Stalker Blink, so as soon as that finishes, he's going to be able to shut down that Banshee play like nothing. He also just did finish his... Storm research, so he's going to be able to hold off any sort of mass infantry play very easily.
Exactly, and here we see the Banshee. If he went in, he maybe got 1 to 2 pro kills and was immediately shut down by those
4 kills
stalkers.
total
So
before he went down.
4 kills, that's not bad. I don't think it paid for itself, but it kept the Protoss on his feet. So maybe it had some psychological gain there.
Right. So
if you want to
harvester
think of it
count
that
is
way.
still 57 for the Protoss player versus 46 with the Terran
It looks
player.
like the Terran player knows he's behind. He threw up a 3rd Expo, which just finished. So he may be trying to really take that risk and get ahead in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, if you know you're behind like this, you got to make some sort of crazy move, like another fast 3rd or something to catch up. Because if you just keep playing like you're playing and the other player's ahead, over time, if you don't do anything about it, that gap is just going to get larger and larger.
Exactly. I really admire this choice by him because, like you said, you have to make some sort of risk at this point. If the players if your opponent's already macroing much better than you are, you have to get yourself back in the game. It may be through harassment, it may be through throwing down an extra expo, but you have to do something to make sure you can stay in the game.
Right.
Look how zealot heavy Marvin's army is. That's gonna once he gets charged, that's gonna deal with those tanks very nicely.
Yeah, against Terran, Zealot Templar are a very nice unit composition for any sort of ground army that a Terran may have. Zealot's pretty much effective against every single ground unit. They're just very, very good, and Templar are able to take down those Marines and infantry balls very effectively.
Yeah, so based on it looks like the Terran player he's a lot of Marines, a lot of tanks, a Banshee and a Raven. So
and it looks
this
like
composition,
Marvin's gonna go for the gold base next, but the Terran player does see this because he has control of the Zelnaga watchtower. So Terran player's gonna have to do something and not let this gold base get saturated.
Here we have the main engagement right at the Terran base. We see the PDDs thrown down, which is gonna negate a lot of those stalkers.
Those tanks are shelling away at those zealots, but tanks were recently nerfed in the recent patch so that they do less damage to light units. But
and blinking right on top, very nice.
Going down very easily. Lots of storms going down on those tanks.
This is great control by Marvin.
Yeah, looking at the army count, you know, it's already 1 to 6 food to 86. Terran losing a lot of stuff. I think we're gonna see GG soon.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the Terran really has to pull something out of its hat to win it. But there we see Ba-G, which apparently means good game, UT. I must say this is a pretty good match, a pretty good show match between the two schools. It's very exciting. Most of the games were very close, and I'm impressed with how both schools played.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the main reasons that the Terran player lost this one is because he didn't do enough scouting. He should have known that this fast expo was coming up. There's really no reason why you didn't know what was going on in that entire large portion of the map. You know, expansion time is one of those things you want to scout for. So if he had seen that come up, he would have been able to change his build order a little bit, maybe put some early pressure on, not just let Protoss get a bunch of probes and get away with it. You know, with a small infantry push, he could have forced and maybe killed a few, forced him to produce units that he'd want, throw up an earlier gateway, yeah, and just harassed him economically like that.
I completely agree. As we mentioned in one of the earlier games, the Terran have a very, very strong early infantry push against Protoss, and Marvin was taking a huge risk there by taking that expansion, but he was playing with the mind of Cheeseblock. He knew that he had faced a lot of stalker pressure in the early tech before, so he would probably be playing defensive, and here it definitely paid off as the Terran didn't even bother scouting.
Right.
All right, well, thank you all. It was a fun match, and we look forward to the CSL season for UT and other show matches that are to come.
All right.